Okay, so I'm responding to Dr. E. Hiccups. It's a she, her. She messaged me profusely on Instagram. She wants my attention, and I'm going to give it to her because I'm a kind person. Okay, so this is her first message. It's she sent a Sydney University study, basically stating that people who are critical of the lockdown restrictions are basically bad people. So the study, it has been conducted worldwide, and intellect and education play a major role in the belief systems and an ability to take on new concepts. For example, the most educated you are, the less you believe in God. These are psychological, philosophical facts. Okay, so I'd like to find out where you get this information from, that there's a direct correlation between the high IQ and the decrease in spiritual values, because that's a very bold claim. Also, the idea of belief in God, it's a very nebulous term because there are many types of religions, and some people don't identify with that particular Christian term of a God. There's Hindus, Muslims, Jews, many other religions, and I don't think it's really fair to encompass them all under the same category, because I think they would appreciate knowing that they are unique. And it's been conducted worldwide. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's enough to make causation into the population, because the internal validity of a study can be affected by what are the intentions, what is the scientific researcher's aim of the study, right? So this is obviously the most critical time in history. There's nothing more exciting or nothing more apparent to be a part of, right? So there's always going to be a subconscious bias by the experimenters in their research, and that's why you have to take a plethora of information. So when you establish an opinion on something, you have to research hours and hours of different opinions and peer-reviewed articles, right, that have gone through actual bona fide systems of regulation. So, for example, if you're writing a 2,000-word essay and like a second-year psychology undergraduate degree, you would probably have to browse at least 20 to 30 peer-reviewed articles, and that would have to be like at least 6 to 10 hours of research time. So in order to conduct your belief, just one article, it's not really substantial enough. So this is her next comment, not bias. So so my message to her, after briefly browsing through the article, was that it's a rather small sample size, and you have to be mindful of experimentation bias. I do get where you're coming from, with a smiley face, being diplomatic. So not biased. Why does everyone suddenly question highly qualified professionals? So why does everyone? That's a bit of a dogmatic statement there. And highly qualified professionals, the entire basis of science is that you are critical of previous studies, and you work on the previous established best version of truth that we've got, and it's constantly being refined. And the main thing you have to understand when it comes to scientific studies is that you can never say something is true. You can only falsify the other claims. So nothing is ever seen as true. It's just been you've defalsified every other plausible option with the research you have in time. And considering this is a very new phenomenon, and imagine, right, as a scientific researcher, you would imagine that the mental health of the researcher would be scrutinized, and that the study would go based on previous research with the amount of time needed to make a causation like that. And considering this pandemic has been around only 2 years, you would imagine that you need a lot of long-term studies to make any extreme causations like that, because this is a very sensitive subject. It needs a lot of scrutiny. And it's everyone's responsibility to question professionals. It's called critical thinking. It doesn't mean just throw out everyone's opinion. It just means to investigate. And what they teach at university is that by researching the opposite opinion to yours, that's how you substantiate your own claim. You cannot strengthen your own argument by simply ignoring the opposition. You have to keep your enemies close, but your friends closer, opposite way around. So because of the Trump mentality, Trump has been out of office now for a while, so your obsession with Trump is really kind of strange. It permeated the God-fearing sectors of society. So that's very... she just put every single religion, every kind of spiritual connection in history in the same category. God-fearing. You know, I don't fear any God, I don't fear anything, because this meat body is just containing my spirit. You know, you could come in tonight and murder me. I'd be upset, but not that upset, because I'd be dead. But also, look, my spirit's going to go on. You know, I may come back as a turtle or a fish or, you know, a tree, but that's okay. I'm not really, my life isn't really that important, right? I'm just like a connection of all the great writers and my family and friends and, you know, and Australian culture and all the Hollywood movies I've watched. So people get way too egotistical over their own life. Trump mentality has permeated the God-fearing sectors of society. Trump mentality. I'd like to, if you could elaborate on what you mean by Trump mentality, because for me, for example, I'm extreme liberal. Like I grew up, you know, born and raised in the Fremantle region, Western Australia, extremely liberal area. So I really don't care if anyone's gay. I really don't care if anyone's. I'm not a big fan of guns. Look, you can get an abortion up to a couple of months, you know, but I do think you should get a bit of psychological analysis. Make sure you're not just popping them out, you know, for something to do. And so yeah, it's a bit strange to put someone in a category, because everyone's a bit different, and I think it's the big problem I can see is that we're trying to put everyone into these tribes, like either you're A or B. But people are complex. No one is either A or B. There's a lot of grey lines in between. So just to assume someone's either radically right, radically left, it's a bit unfair, because if you actually had a conversation with someone face to face over a few hours, you know, over a mojito or a Earl Grey, you might be able to find some common ground. But the thing is, I feel like you've already hate me without even getting to know me, which is, it's not really that cool. But I can see where you're coming from. I can see how you have that much hate in your heart, because our needs haven't been met. Like I was referring to before, how these scientific studies that have come out the past 18 months, we've got to be critical of them, just as every other scientific study, because the mental health of the general population has never been worse. Never. And so who's to say that someone working at a university may be having a bad day? Maybe they're really scared of the fact that they're under lockdown and they don't know what the future's like. So they've kind of shrunken into these like antiquated tribal, like I'm a pro lockdown and this is the anti-lockdown person, so I hate this person, I want them to die, and everyone on my team I love. But that's kind of strange, because before 2 years ago, there was never this kind of polarization. Like people didn't put themselves in this category, because people are complex. You need to actually have a conversation face to face to be able to, you know, have a real human interaction. Look at the Bible Belt. I mean, that's just being straight up prejudiced. And for someone who's, because you have hateful of this man you never met, Donald Trump, I'm assuming that you are someone who identifies as democratic, someone who is a left-wing person, right? So left-wing people, their claim to fame is anti-prejudice. They are more about welcoming and not putting people in boxes, right? I mean, loving, caring, you are who you choose to be, right? So to just dogmatically wash and paint the entire region of the United States as a Bible Belt, that's a little bit disrespectful, because I'm sure there's people in those pockets who are not following the Bible at all. And it's a real gross generalization. And yeah, actually, there's been a lot of changes geographically, specifically with the internet. It's not really fair to say one region is only this and that's it, because the world's globalized, right? The Californication culture has spread around the whole world. You can go to Dubai, you can go to Sri Lanka, and you get very similar culture now. Because the internet, we can share information very easily. And the phenomenal relationship between Christianity, racism, and anti-vaxxers. So I think of the pause in there, but there's no commas or anything. So the phenomenal relationship between Christianity, racism, and anti-vaxxers. Okay, so now there's an allegation that those of Christian faith are tied to those who are critical of the pro-vaccine choice, and they linking those of Christian faith with racism too. I mean, it's a very bold claim, and there's a lot of generalizations there. I really don't want to discuss those connections because it's just rather absurd, and I don't even think you're going to watch this, so I can't even be bothered. But yeah, I said this video because, like I was saying before, I don't think text is a really appropriate way to have a meaningful conversation, specifically about politics. It's a really big deal. So you don't really want to ascertain your verdict on someone just by a couple of texts. Okay, so yeah, hope you enjoyed this, Dr. E. Hiccups. And yeah, have a great day. Don't forget to call your mum, tell you love her.